two, three, two, two, three. And by the way, if any of you have not been here before, we do love to entertain questions from the audience. So if at any point you have something, either a comment or a question, just raise your hand and we'll call on you, as it were. So I think you could hear how Harrison was allowed all this freedom because we were just stuck on these one or two chords, and he was able to go wherever he wanted, which I think is a kind of a trademark is a terrible word, but it's something that you hear in these recordings a lot because they went to these sort of trances and drones and just repetitive rhythms that allowed the soloist, in this case Coltrane, to just kind of soar above. So anything you guys would like to, yeah.
Here's a little bit of math. The reason these repetitive patterns get really, it's a polyrhythm. So it's in 3/4. This tune, 1, 2, 3, 2, 2, 3, and so on. So, but what happens against that is this 1, 2, So it's almost like a slow 4. So I can get you to try to feel this tension. This is kind of how you live in this dense tension if you can stand it. A lot of people can't. So just think of this, not difficult, not difficult, not difficult. 1, not difficult. So that's how it goes. It's 2 against 3, 3 against 2. But when it's all in the mix, we're all participating on different elements of that. And it just kind of creates this thing. And it's deep and it's intense and you can get lost in it. And that's the charm of it. Some people don't like that.
Yes, we came today prepared that some of you might not like what we're going to do, but we're happy to hear. If you don't like it, you're welcome to share that with us. Hopefully you do like it, and hopefully we're explaining it well enough so that you at least understand what's going on. We are going to shift gears right now. We're going to play a ballad for you. This is a original of McCoy's called Search for Peace. Very beautiful tune. This was on The Real McCoy, 1967. So, and this is after he left Coltrane in 1965, and he tells the journalist Len Lyons, who asked him, what prompted you to leave the group in 1965? I mean, this is a major deal to leave the John Coltrane Quartet. And he just said, well, I felt if I was going to go any further musically, I would have to leave the group. And when John hired a second drummer, Rashid Ali, it became a physical necessity. I couldn't hear myself. He said, John was understanding. In fact, I think he admired my courage. So at that point, that allowed McCoy to go out and lead his own dates again, right, to record just with his own groups. And so again, Real McCoy in 1967 is considered a kind of a classic McCoy album. He titled this because of its tranquil feeling. He said, quote, it has to do with a man's submission to God and the giving over of the self to the universe. And the personnel on the album is Joe Henderson, Ron Carter, and Elvin Jones. And I'll just say a quick word about the tune itself. I think those of you who may have been here for the Bill Evans show, we talked a lot about the fact that Bill loved to write tunes and play tunes by other people that would have these A sections that had a fair amount of chord changes in them that moved around, and then these B sections that would be much more tranquil and maybe have a pedal point, you know, a solid bass note with other harmonies maybe moving over it. And it's interesting to me because this tune does almost exactly that. And you know, I don't know if McCoy was at all influenced by Bill in this regard in terms of composing, but it might be nice to think he was, because they all influenced each other, and I know they were both mutual fans of each other. So you can listen for that. There's a lot of very familiar sounding chords in the beginning, what we call 2-5-1s, clear harmonic progressions, and then there's this very nice kind of impressionistic, if you will, bridge, and then we go back to the A section. So this is Search for Peace. Thank you, Paul Keller, and that beautiful bass solo. Any questions that anybody has about what's going on up here? If we can answer them. We don't really know what the hell is going on up here, but we can try and answer. Okay, and if you do come up with any, we still have a couple more opportunities. So, all right, so now one of my favorite, we've already brought Harrison up. One of my favorite things to do is to involve our students, and we have such incredible students in our jazz program that it's just a joy to involve them and introduce them to you. I'm going to bring up just fabulous jazz pianist, Josh Catania, and most undergraduates do 4 years here. He somehow managed to do everything he needed to do in 3, so he is leaving us. I do understand he gets to join his fiancée out in Connecticut, which of course is where I'm from, so I can't very well argue against him going to Connecticut. But he is going to talk to you a little bit about what he's going to do right now, so please welcome Josh Catania to the stand.
Go Huskies! So it's great to be joining you guys all here this afternoon, talking about McCoy Tyner, who is a really important influence to me. So thank you, Professor Rowe, for having me up for this. And it's great to be playing with these guys back here, holding it down. So what I'm about to do is I transcribed a solo of McCoy's on Green Dolphin Street, the jazz standard many of you might be familiar with. And as has been the theme so far, McCoy has taken some different spins on it, so you're going to hear a lot of that. A lot of it has to do with the harmony that you're going to hear in my left hand, kind of shifting around, as Professor Rowe put it. And another thing so when I did this transcription, I learned all the notes, which it's at a very fast tempo. It's going to be a character change from that last one you heard. So it's going to be challenging a little bit that way, but we're also going to be improvising after this transcription, which is something that I've done a lot of in Professor Rowe's class to prepare kind of for this experience today. And it's a good way, though, to dive into the language and really try to make something of McCoy Tyner's influence. When I just hear that, I want to be able to translate that to the instrument somehow. So I'll be exploring that right in front of you here today. And we're going to get right into it, though. This is McCoy's solo / my solo / the band on Green Dolphin Street.
Josh, do you remember when you played it roughly? I'm just curious.
Yeah, this is from 1965. Yeah, it's a deep one for sure.
Tanya. Woo. Yeah. Thank you, Josh. Yeah. The future of the music is in good hands. Yeah. It's interesting because Josh is about the same age that McCoy was when he joined Coltrane, so I foresee similar things like that in Josh's future, in the very near future, I hope. Okay, so we're going to close up. We have one more piece for you, and this is a blues, although it will, again, maybe be a little bit confusing. It won't sound like the exact types of blues that we normally play for you in here. We're going to invite Harrison back up again. He's going to switch over to tenor and do his best Joe Henderson imitation this time. This is also from the Real McCoy, 1967. Great album to get if you don't have it. And one of the quotes said, "The album closes with an upbeat, merry piece called Blues in the Corner, a reminiscent musical portrait of Tyner's childhood. He says, when I was growing up in Philadelphia, some of the kids I knew liked to hang out in the corner. Youngsters talking, kidding around, jiving." So that's the idea behind this piece. Just a couple of things to sum up here. Another Nate Chinnon quote: "Few musicians have ever exerted as much influence as a sideman. His crucial role in the group's articulation of modal harmony from the early 1960s on will always stand as a defining achievement. The ringing intervals in his left hand, which you just heard Josh doing with perfection, all those types of sounds. Let's see, the ringing intervals, often perfect fourths or fifths, became the cornerstone of a style that endures today." So I think with that, any questions or anything people would like to ask before we play this last piece?
I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah.
A general question is, has transcribing solos always been a thing?
That's a great question. So it has and it hasn't. So what the players, before we had YouTube and the great slowdowner, which is something that slows things, digitally down so that they're slower and you can hear them better, or before even, the tape cassettes, because I used to transcribe off cassettes, right? You guys do some of that? Drop the needle, yeah, drop the needle on the record, and you had to transcribe that way. That destroyed a few records. But what happened in the 1930s, before 20s, whatever, before all this happened, was that people would just listen over, they'd go to clubs and they would hear something and they would get together after hours and they would talk about, share licks and share things like that. And so there was transcribing going, but it was all oral and it was in the moment. I'm not sure that, unless somebody had an eidetic memory, that they were, being able to listen to an entire solo of Charlie Parker's and go home and play it by memory. But it's just in the advent of recording technology that people have, all been recording. Some people write it down. Josh and I both wrote ours down because we wanted to have a written record of it, which is really nice. You can go back from 5 years and go, oh yeah, that's right. Some people choose to just do it without writing it down. They feel that it makes it stick in their memory a little better. So I think both are good. You guys have anything to add about that? Oh. Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we do this process just to learn some vocabulary of the players that we admire, and then we never play it in our. I mean, we might little bits and pieces of it may come out in our own solos.
As impressive as that written transcription is, that they took the time and to do that, and that they can read it and pull it off. That's a monument of achievement. That's not the goal. The goal is just to get a bunch of information so that you can do it on your own and you can say, remember like Gary Shunk, he'd say, Art Tatum. And he'd go, Art Tatum. And he'd say, McCoy Tyner. And he'd play McCoy Tyner. And he'd say, Oscar Peterson. And he'd play Oscar Peterson. That's the goal, is to, actually to do it with a little more taste than that. But you know what I mean, is to have that, that's the goal, is to obtain the knowledge and then turn it on when you decide.
Yeah. Yeah, and I'll also say that one of the things that was so interesting, because I knew when Josh had finished playing the written transcription and was just improvising, and seamless. He had just taken that language and absorbed it and made it his own, and he was improvising, kind of in a similar style, but it was all Josh. So that's the goal, and I've now more informed, right. Just like I played a couple choruses after Inception, after I did the transcription, and my playing on that is now very different than it would have been, a year ago, because I went to the trouble to really learn that solo. So that's kind of the process. And you've transcribed, I'm sure, a lot of solos.
Yeah, it's the same process. It's this music is a language. It's the same way you would transcribe someone speaking, or a lot of people when they're learning languages or learning off of TV shows and things. It's the same kind of thing. You pick a particular person whose voice you want to imitate, and you try to get in that style. And the trick is walking the fine line between doing an impression of someone. You don't want to be a hack in that way, but also people being able to see the influence and being inspired by a person.
One risk about that, it extracts all the emotion, and when you hear those Coltrane records, it's just like, whoa, that's like some other worldly kind of effect. So you could learn the notes, but that's part of it. And to have that language, like finger movement, understanding the math and how it all, and the form of all that. So there's so many different plateaus of transcribing that it's all goes in a positive direction.
All my life, though, all I've ever done is copy people. And now I'm a millionaire. I like to say this to my students, too. Don't get stuck on one guy. Transcribe a bunch of different people. Copy a bunch of people. If you copy from one guy, you're a plagiarist. If you copy from 10 guys, you're a genius. And if you can hear it, you can have it. And you can use it for your own purposes. Yay, just like words.
Yeah, I think very few of the heroes that we all have, musical heroes, emerged fully formed as artists from the womb. I mean, they all were influenced by people who came before them, and then they eventually matured and became their own individual selves. But the transcribing is an interesting piece of the process for sure. Great question. And anybody else have some questions?
How long did it take to transcribe Inception, for instance?
Let's see, I did what did I do? 3 choruses, 24 bars, like 72 bars. I think I did it in a span of about an hour and a half or 2 hours. I mean, it varies. I'm really lucky because I have perfect pitch, and that makes it awful lot easier to hear the notes and be able, oh yeah, that's that, and then you have to every so often stop and go back and check because it's unfamiliar language. So it can vary. It's yeah, it's a lot of notes.
That's really fast.
I was going to say that take me three times longer to do that.
Well, no, I doubt that. So we're going to play Blues in the Corner, and the one thing I do want to say is that there is almost nothing in the transcription I did on this that I would actually think to play myself before I did this transcription. There's a couple bars, there's 1 or 2 little what we call 2-5-1 licks that come out of nowhere. But that's what's so fascinating about the process. It's like, wow, now I've got some of this language in my ear, and so I'll probably try to play a couple choruses of my own solo after this, and then Harrison is going to play, and he's just going to be improvising. You're not playing any Joe Henderson, right? Yeah. Okay, this will be all pure Harrison. We may have some bass, some trades. We don't know. We'll wait and see what happens. But this is Blues on the Corner. To take care of a couple just very quick important things. First of all, a huge thank you to the Kerrytown staff. Elijah's here, Abby's here, Kenji, Lee, and of course Monica. Just fabulous. This is such a godsend to have this jewel in the middle of Ann Arbor to be able to play and supporting art and, of course, jazz and classical artists. So a huge thank you to the Kerrytown staff. Also a huge thank you to the Don Chisholm Friends of Jazz, who have really been generous in helping to support all the jazz programming that goes on here. And while this may not be officially an All About the Trio show, Marion Hayden and Sonny Wilkinson and I will be back here on Mother's Day to do a program of pieces ranging from Joni Mitchell and Carole King to some more jazz standards. But everything will be primarily either written or have lyrics by women. So we hope you can join us for that on Mother's Day. Pete Sears on the drums. Paul Keller on the bass. Josh Catania on the piano. Thank you so much. I'm Ellen Rowe. We really enjoyed playing for you today. Thank you.